It's always fun when people introduce you really officially.
Sleep, there ain't nobody left to harm. The candles are smoking in the street, hard and heavy tycophons. Can't face the flood by ourselves. We will join with the weather.
Thank you. It's really hard with the way how much information we have access to makes every issue seem really gray and really blurry, and it's hard to get behind anything when there's other people saying the opposite. I don't see anybody saying the opposite about this issue. So thank you for being here, and encourage friends of yours who don't think about politics that much, that this is one issue that we can kind of get behind.
I dreamt about you the other night. We were there when people started to die. The seas rose to a terrible height, and we survived, yeah, we survived. I don't know why we watched the grass dry open the cracks. The birds returned, the nights went black. Yeah, we were lovers in the great collapse. The seasons came, the seasons passed. So free what you love, 'cause it's gonna die. Though can't say no. Civilization ain't got no soul. The tick-tock ticks out of control. I'm on a roll, I'm on a roll. Lost control. Blowing battery ends. It's true, we're hardly friends. I can't forget those seasons. The world is one, the world is one. So free what you love, 'cause it's gonna die anymore. Those golden days will be fossilized and we'll scream all back and up, but it's not the same, no, it's enough just to say
from my friend south of the border. I don't know it in Spanish, but in English it is, the people united will never be defeated. That's what we're showing here today. So, to get the actual formal business done, Mitzeb Patquilum Atanash Mathquimal Tamok Tinawel. I Gunish Qualowens Quincy I Gunish Qualowens Quincy Quinsnala. Clem Tanat Gunis Quik, Tanitanat Humathquium. Lama Huayquik, Tanitlina August, Tennessee Laugh. My name is Audrey Siegel. I am so proud to say that I am from Musqueam, and I say welcome to these unceded lands of the Musqueam people here today. I am the granddaughter of Stephen and Selena August, and I am beyond pleased to be here. I am so excited to be here, to use our voices and to say that we're going to focus on what we're protecting. We're going to focus on what is good. And in the meantime, we are going to tackle these issues like C-51 and the secret police and Harper's evil deeds. But we will keep our eye on the prize, which is the good that we are working towards and the beauty that we are protecting. Because not just as an Indigenous person, not just as a woman, but as a human being, I have inalienable rights to speak my truth. As a human being, I have a right to be heard. As a human being, I have a right to be safe and be protected, as does everybody else. Bill C-51 will not silence me. No matter what his paid goon squads do, I will not stop. See, we have a phrase in my language, I'm sure anybody who's heard me speak has heard me share it before. Natsamatishkwalowinst. We are of one heart and one mind. That is how we find our way to healing. We work through our truth. We don't hide from the ugly things that live in the darkness and the shadows. We drag them out into the light, and we do everything we can to make the situations how they always should have been. And again, we do that together. We do that as one, we do that as one, as human beings. Everybody who's heard me talk has heard me say again and again the importance of just being a human being. When I see you, I want to see a human being first. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. Together, we each bring our gifts. We each bring our power. We each bring our ancestors. And we can make this a better place for everybody. We can make these changes that need to be made. I am a perfect example of the absolute possibility of these changes, because my mother and my grandfather were arrested when she was only 15 years old for daring to go to City Hall to stand up for their rights because they didn't agree with what was happening. They were at 15 years old, she and her father were arrested. They didn't even have a drum. They just had their bodies, and they said, no, we don't like this, and they got arrested. I've been hit in the face with the drum, but I haven't been arrested. So when we come back to again and again is, what are we protecting? We're protecting freedom. We're protecting what is right. We're protecting what is good. And we're protecting what is in the best interest of everybody, not just a tiny few percent. This has to do with C-51. This has to do with fracking, pipelines, tar sands, farmed fish, Indigenous women's rights. We have to protect our women, because when we put a value back on a human life, then we will appropriately understand the value of this earth. We cannot value the earth unless we value the people that are on it. And that means the women too. We have the absolute terror Modi from India. We have the atrocities happening in China and in Tibet. We have atrocities happening in South America. Every continent has, excuse my language, terrible shit happening. This is part of what is connecting us. I went to an event called Connecting the Dots. We need to connect the dots for everybody to see that we cannot separate the issues. We cannot allow ourselves to be divided. We cannot allow ourselves to be fractured and to lose our power, our ground, and our stability of when we stand as one. Because when we give that up, we give up our power. There are way more of us who are willing to stand up and fight for what is right than there are the people who are fighting to hold on to what is destroying the future for everybody. So again, I say, Haitsabka, to each of you for being here, for taking your time and energy, for using your actual physical presence to show what is important, because this is important. My voice and my freedom to express my truth are important, just as important as yours. And I encourage every one of you, get out there and speak your truth. Share your story. Every one of us has an amazing contribution to make to the changes that have to be made. Get out there and do your good work. Share your magic and inspire and encourage and empower everybody around you. Now, I haven't been, my lungs are a little iffy, but I'm still gonna sing, and this is a song, it's a Musqueam paddle song. It is used to welcome. We use it to actually paddle in our canoes when we were able to go in the water. And it's a song that I sing also to welcome in the ancestors, not just mine but yours, to bring them to support us, to guide us, to give us strength, and to show us the right way to go and the right words, to open people's minds and hearts so that we can all work together. So if you know it, please sing along with me. Clap, dance, whatever you like.
Thank you. I want to start by acknowledging that we are gathered here today on the unceded, occupied territories of the Coast Salish people, the Burrard, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. I've been invited to speak about the effects of Bill C-51 on the Muslim community, and before I speak to that, I want to preface everything I say by making a point that I don't speak on behalf of the Muslim community in Canada, and I don't represent all Muslims in Canada. Far too often, especially within the mainstream media, Muslims are labeled as one homogeneous body, as one voice, as having one stance when it comes to everything. And I think it's really important to speak out against that we are a community with differing viewpoints, with differing politics, and with differing voices, and I'm just one of those voices. So today I'm speaking on behalf of myself, as someone who has grown up in Canada post 9/11 and has experienced the effects as a Muslim of anti-terror legislation here as well. I want to start by sharing the story of Benamar Banata. Benamar Banata, who is now a Canadian citizen, came to Canada in September of 2001 seeking refugee status here, since he faced detention, torture, and death in his homeland of Algeria. 6 days after arriving in Canada, on the evening of 9/11, Canadian immigration officials illegally transferred Mr. Banata to the United States and handed him over to US officials. While in the United States, Mr. Banata was held in solitary confinement for 5 years and subjected to torture, humiliation, and was denied his rights and freedoms. There were never any criminal charges brought against Mr. Banata, nor was there any evidence that was produced to implicate him in any sort of terrorist organization or terrorist plot. After 5 years of unlawful detention, Mr. Banata was finally transferred back to Canada by US officials, and he is now suing the federal government for the treatment which he endured at their hands. It's important to share stories like this because Mr. Banata's story is part of Canada's larger role in the war on terror. And let's not be confused, this bill is part of that war as well. Bill C-51 is part of Canada's unlawful anti-terror regime, which allowed the RCMP and CSIS to detain Mahar Arar and extradite him to Syria, where he would be further detained and tortured.
Shame!
Bill C-51 is part of the anti-terror regime, which allowed 5 Muslim men, Adil Charkawi, Hassan Al-Miri, Mohammed Majoub, Mohamed Jubala, and Mohammed Harakat, to be arrested and to be detained under Canadian security certificates without ever being charged with terrorism under secret evidence against a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So although it goes without saying that this secret police bill will affect all of our rights and freedoms, we have to acknowledge and keep at the forefront the fact that racialized communities will be the most affected by this bill. Communities such as the Muslim community and the Indigenous community. And I don't simply need to refer to the past in order to come to this conclusion. I can simply refer to the rhetoric, the racist rhetoric, which the Harper government is using in order to justify this bill and in order to scare Canadians into supporting this bill. We are continuously being told that we need to give our law enforcement agencies greater powers to spy on us because there is an imminent terrorist threat on the horizon. That we are being told that mosques here in Canada are breeding grounds for jihadi terrorists, and that we need to be scared of Islam and Muslims. But we know that this couldn't be farther from the truth. We know that there is an astronomically higher chance of any one of us dying while driving our car than being killed by a terrorist. We know that if you're a woman living in Canada, and in particular an Indigenous woman, there is an astronomically higher chance of you being murdered or you going missing at the hands of a man than there is of you dying by any imminent terror plot. The fact of the matter is that that oil spill in English Bay is more of a threat to us right here than any terrorist plot. Bill C-51 is the largest terrorist threat facing us right now. And I think it's important to say that because the Harper government is engaging in this fear-mongering, this very calculated fear-mongering, in order to try to scare us all into supporting this bill, Muslims here in Canada not only have to deal with the effects of Bill C-51, the spying, the detention, the taking away of our civil liberties, but we also have to deal with the Islamophobic rhetoric which surrounds Bill C-51. This rhetoric which villainizes us and questions our belonging here in Canada. So when we, as a community of concerned individuals gather, let us not only speak out against Bill C-51, but let us speak out against this racist rhetoric which surrounds this bill. Now, when speaking about Islamophobia, I think it's important to contextualize it and acknowledge its place within the larger history of Canada, using fear and breeding phobias around communities in order to justify discriminatory laws, in order to justify actions which affect these communities. Long before 9/11 and long before the War on Terror, the Indigenous stewards of these lands were labeled as uncivilized and as savages by the Canadian state in order to justify their detention through residential schools and in order to justify the occupation of their land, which continues into the present. Similarly, Chinese and Japanese Canadians were in one way or the other categorized as threats to Canada and as a result subjugated to the head tax and internment camps. The label of terrorist was even applied to the labor movement here in Canada, whereas the Canadian Union of Carpenters, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, the CAW, and many other major unions here in Canada were classified as being a threat because they dared to speak out against the unjust and harsh working conditions that workers face here in Canada. Right now, at this moment, there's hundreds of undocumented migrants being held in immigration detention in Canada without charges or without trial indefinitely, and their detention as well is being justified under a rhetoric of fear. And I say all of this, and I refer to this history, because we need to go beyond simply asking for Bill C-51 to be amended. We need to go beyond simply asking for more effective anti-terror legislation. We need to speak out against this racist fear-mongering which this government has engaged in the past and which this government is continuing to engage in now. Because even if Bill C-51 is amended or abandoned altogether, the xenophobia which has driven the War on Terror, which has been utilized in the past, will continue to be used in the future to justify the targeting of marginalized communities, to justify the silencing of dissent, and to justify future legislation which will take away all our rights and freedoms. We need to start dismantling this underlying rhetoric which drives all of this. Because let's be clear, the intent of this bill is about silencing our ability to dissent. It's about preventing us from speaking out against the pipelines, against oil spills, against the continuing degradation of this land that we occupy. It is about silencing our ability to question this government's continuing and larger role in the War on Terror. That is why we need to speak out against this bill today, because we might not have that opportunity tomorrow. Thank you.
I saw a joke that said we had a better chance of being killed by a moose as a terrorist here in Canada.
For this is their land, Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish land, east to west from the Great North, down to the Great Lakes, We thank First Nations hospitality. We called this our land, but now we understand we have just borrowed it from our children, guarded 7 generations for our common future, and thank Coast Salish hospitality. Police, what an un-Canadian thing. A poke in the eye he could apply to almost anything. To let ceases into our secrets is as sharp as a bee sting from Parliament's right wing. Elizabeth May says don't allow them to become our secret police, or they'll monitor our every move, be assured of our speech. And you know how word of pipelines or a First Nations wreath scares Parliament's right wing. See, 51 is scary and we knew it, but this time they almost blew it. 4 previous Prime Ministers reviewed it, and all right out loud warning gone.
But I feel somebody has to say something for the bloody suffering, underprivileged, underdoped and underunderstood. And I would suggest that if I got the Marxist-Leninists from about to attack the Acromials, I don't live up to their expectations. Following the conventional line which has been distributed to you for some time. There is only one thing you really all need to find out and know. That the Bank of Canada Act of 1934 must be returned to the people of this country. Further, because without any desire on my part, I have been involved with these spooks for almost since before my birth, I want to tell you this. They're just a common herd like the rest of you, and that we all are. But I'll tell you something else. In each and every one of us, there is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, what can we do? What we can do is to stand up and refuse to pay our taxes until the Bank of Canada is returned to the people of this country. And further, I'm on a mission here. These gentlemen will endorse my intent. These gentlemen will endorse my intent, as will this lady, who is properly disguised, and I appreciate her approach. You want to hear the other speakers, and that will come. I'm taking this opportunity now, because it may be the very last one I have, to say these things to you. And you need to hear these things. I will very quietly stand aside when I finish what I have to say. Now, following the radical changes which will happen in Canada as a result of even a small percentage of you taking this action, democracy will be established. Without that, we're dealing with a hierarchy. And these hierarchies are not really looking at...
Turn it on! Turn it on! Don't behave like C-51! Free speech! Free speech! Free speech! Free speech!
I'm moved to tears by that. It's very evident to most of us here that we're very evidently ready to be recognized by these lunacy that want to run us all into the cage. Well, my friends, that is because we were born free and we will live free, and we will not be frightened by this mystique of domination by superior class, rank, title, or social standing. It is time to recognize we are under one sun and we are standing on one earth. And as I see it, we're all collections of molecules with one photon of consciousness. And we're all alike in that regard. And one thing we will do, and that is to uphold creation, because there really is a creator, and it's all of us together believing that simple fact we can move forward. I think I have said my best. I have a website. I'm happy to hand out cards, and of course we must stand against any further state domination, because we have been enslaved. I blew the whistle on that fraud in 1972 to the Governor General and the head of the RCMP and the Deputy Commissioner in charge of criminal investigation. I then went back to mind my own business because I believe Canadians having that information would take care of it. Several generations came along and said, "Oh, no, Mr. West, we'll take care of it." And for a while they did. But this time around, I know we will. The Bank of Canada must be returned to the people of Canada, and I accept a nice warm hand on my shoulder. Thank you all very much.
All right, before we move on, I just want to make an announcement that actually there is a forum for people to speak their piece on the march. We have this PA system here. We also have a mobile PA system. So if you have something to say on the topic of Bill C-51 or physics, you can let her rip. All right, I am also...
Stephen Harper's got to go. Ho, ho. Stephen Harper's got to go.
When I say freedom, you say speech. Freedom.
Speech.
Freedom.
Speech.
When I say human, you say right. Human.
Right.
Human.
Right.
When I say people, you say power. People.
Power.
People.
Power.
People.
Power.
People.
Power.
No to Bill C-51.
No to Bill C-51.
No to Bill C-51.
No to Bill C-51.
So while they're stopping here, just get to the other side.
People united will never be defeated.
Will never be defeated. United will never be defeated. United will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
All right, we'll do some drumming too, but just for everybody's attention, there are two ministries located in these two buildings. One is the Ministry of the Environment. It should be called Ministry of Pollution. On the other side, we have what is called the Ministry of Fisheries. It should be called Ministry of Plunder. I've asked our brother Dan to say a few words. He and the Hutsik Nation were very, very active this fall. And you know, when we say, and I heard Grand Chief Stuart Phillips say this just on Thursday night, he said the Indigenous nations are a thin red line to protect Mother Earth. But we need everybody together. We need it. He said we can't do it alone. We need everybody with us. We need collectively to stand. And the Hutsik story, Dan is going to explain that Hutsik story. It's an important story of resistance and struggle and victory. So give a big hand for Dan.
That's all of you people. That's locally. Dale Kasakilkame, Kilkame, Sailing, Swami, Musqueam, Tlewotu, Hatsalano, Nugwa Gasugila. My name is Dan Wallace, and for some of you who know me, you know I'm very active within the community with a very strong core group of family members. What Sutlut was talking about earlier, we're building their strength and building our family up and making ourselves more and more stronger. A few weeks ago, some of you may have noticed that we decided to take on Department of Fisheries. One of the reasons why I wanted to sort of speak here was to actually let you guys know that direct action works. What we were able to achieve with supporting the Hutsik people is we were able to force the head administrator here, who basically lied to us first thing in the morning, said she was going to head up. But she didn't actually get off her butt until we actually occupied the office. So we made it right upstairs and we occupied their office. And we were successful because they shut the herring fishery down up in Area 7 and we won. Now some of the things that we're dealing with respect to Bill C-51 right now is that kind of action will criminalize anybody for taking a stand, and that is something that we need to stand against because we have a right to stand up and protect the land because I'm not a protester. I'm a protector, just like everybody here. So when we start getting things further and further down the road, you know that there's going to be brothers like myself, sisters like Sutlut, and other people who are willing to not only come to a rally, but willing to do what we're supposed to do to make sure that we make sure that they actually hear what we have to say. We will occupy offices. We will take over the streets. We will let them know that we're not going to stand here in fear of them anymore. C-51! Move to Bill! C-51! Go 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 to Bill! C-51!
States consulate is also just on the building back there. We call it the coldest place in Vancouver a lot of the time. But also, we gotta know that the Government of Canada offices are no warmer, are no more friendly to the people of Canada. We always see that there are wars abroad, the wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, Syria. Those wars are always accompanied with a war at home. They try and clamp down against people's rights in Canada, Indigenous rights against dissent. That's what this Bill C-51 is. It's a bill against dissent. They wouldn't need to do that bill, they wouldn't make the bill if they weren't worried about dissent, if they didn't know that people were going to rise up and people were going to speak out against Bill C-51. If they weren't afraid of us, they wouldn't try and criminalize our right to speak, our freedom of speech, our freedom to assembly, and our right to privacy. So they know, and they're afraid of our potential. So I want to thank everybody very much for coming here. Keep on doing this. We're at the SkyTrains every month. We just have to keep going and going and going. Because our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, those weren't handed to us benevolently by the government. Those were things that people fought for, people won, and we have to keep defending them. Because the second that we won the freedom of speech, the Government of Canada was trying to take it away from us. The second we won the freedom of the right of assembly, the Government of Canada was trying to take it away from us. We have to keep defending it, keep on fighting it, and say no to Bill C-51. No to Bill C-51!
No to Bill C-51! Ministry of War and Aggression and Occupation. Now, we're marching and we demonstrated today against Bill C-51, and one of the excuses for this bill is the Islamophobic attack on the people of Muslim faith and to paint them as terrorists. Now I ask you, what is the terrorist? Is it not the bombers who are dropping bombs on women and children in Iraq and Syria? Canada, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sold $14 billion to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is now dropping bombs on the people of Yemen. Stop bombing Yemen!
Stop bombing Yemen! Stop bombing everybody!
Now we have a few people who want to say a few words. This is a kind of a strategic place because foreign policy of Canada is intimately linked with the policy of the United States of America. Canada is a lapdog of the U.S. empire.
Always has been.
And the fact of the matter is, when Harper and Modi met in Vancouver on Thursday and went to Surrey on Thursday, they did it because the United States, and bear this in mind because it is a real threat to Mother Nature and to the entire world's population. The United States has established a new geopolitical alliance with India to isolate China. We are witnessing, if you will, the kind of realignment of geopolitical forces that our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-grandparents saw at the eve of the World War I just over 100 years ago. And only difference this time is whether the people have the strength to say no to war, no to aggression.
No to war!
So join me in a slogan, bring Canadian troops home now!
Bring Canadian troops home now!
All right, I'm going to turn the mic over to a couple of women who want to say a few words.
Yes! Hello everyone, my name is Janine Solanki. I'm the chair of Mobilization Against War and Occupation, MAWO, and we're here today fighting against the war abroad and fighting against the war here at home. The war that's against Indigenous nations that the Government of Canada has been suppressing and occupying for hundreds of years. The war at home against poor and working people. The war at home that while they're spending are being killed by these bombs, being killed by these fighter jets, being killed by troops, while the government of Canada is suppressing us here at home, while they're taking our tax dollars away from essential services, they're taking it out of helping people in the downtown east side, they're taking it away from our education, they're taking it away from housing, and then they're trying to take away our right to say no to this too. That's why we're here today. Who here is against war? Let's hear it. Who here is against environmental degradation? Who here supports labor rights? And now the government of Canada is trying to tell us that they will call us terrorists, that they will arrest us if we stand up for those things, if we fight back against war, if we fight for labor issues, if we fight against environmental degradation. They're going to call us terrorists. We're going to keep fighting against this bill. If this bill goes through, we're going to keep fighting against it, because these are our rights, and we're not going to let them be turned back. No to war and occupation! Yes to self-determination! Thank you very much.
This demonstration is to defeat Harper in 2015. That is an absolute necessity. So I'm going to yell defeat, you yell Harper. Defeat! Harper! Defeat! Harper! Defeat! Harper! All right, next speaker.
Hi, my name's Katie LaRouchetal. I'm socialist candidate in the Alberta elections for the Communist League, and I'm very happy to be able to march with you today. This morning, I was at the picket line of the locked out Southern BC rail workers here in New West. They have been locked out for 104 days. Bill C-51 aims at workers like that. Workers who are standing up against forced overtime, against unsafe work conditions, which put not only their own lives in danger, but the lives of all of those who live in the communities through which the trains drive. So I would urge you, as part of continuing the fight against Bill C-51, to go down to their picket line in New West, show them solidarity, stand together with them for safe working and living conditions. Because Bill C-51, as many other speakers have said, are aimed at workers like that, as well as those who were on the picket lines last Wednesday, April 15th, fighting for $15 an hour and a union against Walmart, against McDonald's, and they have made these companies scared. Both McDonald's and Walmart have already announced that they're slightly raising the wages, so we have them on the run, and we need to continue that fight. That is what... So doing that will help us make the links with those who march against cop brutality. There are many, many marches across North America that are coming together, making the links between those at Walmart and those who are fighting cop brutality. That's how we will make a movement that is able to replace those in power with a government of workers and farmers that will be able to use all the resources of this country for the good of working people around the world. Thank you.